Welcome everyone, this is Next News. Your word of the day is immaculate. Now here on Business Next today, we are going to be talking about Dickerson versus United States. I am also joined here now by my co-hosts, James and Mitchell. We'll have Mitchell talk about some facts before we get into the main case summary and case brief here. So take it away, Mitchell.
The Miranda Law is a warning or right to officers required to read to you after they have you in their custody. The rights include you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to a lawyer before we ask you any questions. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you, and you have the right to have a lawyer with you during questioning. The 18th U.S. Code Section 3501 states that confessions from defendants are accepted in federal prosecution as long as they are made voluntarily. This section also talks about the law enforcement officer's failure to issue Miranda warnings is only one factor to consider in deciding whether the confession was voluntary. That meant that a confession could be held voluntary even if the officers failed to advise a defendant of his or her rights. That's all from me. Take it over, guys.
Thanks, Mitchell. Now on to James talking about the case brief. Take it away, James.
Charles Dickerson committed an armed bank robbery. He was arrested and interrogated by FBI agents at their office. He confessed to the robbery. A federal grand jury charged him with bank robbery and related offenses. In a pre-trial motion, he contended that the district court should suppress his confession because FBI agents failed to read him Miranda warnings before subjecting him to an interrogation. He also said his confession was involuntary. This district court found that his confession was voluntary but agreed that it was inadmissible under Miranda. In an interlocutory appeal, the prosecution argued that the district court erred by suppressing Dickerson's confession under Miranda. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals didn't address the Miranda issue. Instead, on its own motion, the court reversed the district court orders suppressing Dickerson's confession and remanded for a trial at which the confession could be offered into evidence in the Supreme Court. The Miranda Law is a warning or right an officer is required to read you after they have you in custody. The rights are you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to a lawyer before we ask you any questions. If you cannot afford one will be appointed for you. You have the right to have a lawyer with you during questioning.
Thanks, James. That'll do it from here for our co-hosts here today. And I will wrap it up for everyone real quickly. But also, I'm going to go on a quick talk about what this is all about. So, in conclusion, the best way to describe what really happened here is that may Congress legislatively overrule Miranda versus Arizona and its warnings that govern the admissibility of its statements of an interrogation or custodial interrogation, which is the whole issue here. AKA, was the FBI just in its non-ability to issue the warnings as well as the rights of Dickerson, which, when we really boil it down to, when looking at Miranda versus Arizona, no. And this was the conclusion that was given out by the Supreme Court Justice in a 7-2 opinion delivered by Chief Justice William H. Rehnquist. The court held that Miranda governs the admissibility of statements during custodial interrogation in both state and federal courts. Miranda has been embedded in the routine police practice to the point where warnings have become part of our national culture. AKA, the FBI was not just in its actions. Hence, why in a 7-2 opinion, the court ruled in Dickerson's favor. And going back here, to basically make this a little bit simpler, the court held that Congress could not legislatively overrule Miranda versus Arizona, as it was a statute that was set precedent over almost a half a decade ago. A half a decade. more than half a century ago. The fact remains that the FBI was not just, hence, while Dickerson won the case due to this fact. So, from here, and to all of our crew here, thank you for listening to our news report here today. This is your host, Jordan Zertucci, and our co-hosts, James and Mitchell, saying that's all, folks. If you have any more questions, just ask us, and we will do our best to answer them to the fullest of our abilities. Thank you so much for listening, and stay frosty, everyone.